welcome to the 9th episode of the Veggies Abroad Vegan Travel Podcast with the Chief Veggie Pusher, myself, Rebecca Gade Sawicki. Some of you may already be familiar with Veggies Abroad, but for those of you who aren't, we're a full-service vegan travel company that offers custom planning services, small group trips, a helpful blog chock full of just about everything a vegan or veg curious traveler could possibly need to plan an adventure, and also this podcast. With this podcast, I hope to bring you guys the inside scoop of what vegan-friendly, and eco-friendly businesses are doing in the wide world of travel. Plus, I'll give you the full download of what's going on behind the scenes at Veggies Abroad. So, if you've been enjoying this podcast, please give it a rating and hit that little follow button. Those little stars might not seem like a big deal, but they tell the podcast overlords what people think is worthwhile. And if it thinks that this is worthwhile, then that means we can reach a larger audience with our plant-filled message. And in the end, if the podcast grows, that could mean more helpful content for all of you listening. So it's a win-win. Since our last episode, I have heard from many of you, and I want you to know that really does make my day. I am glad that you're enjoying and finding value in this podcast. A format like this, me talking into a mic all by myself, can feel a little like, hey, hello there. Is anybody there? Is this thing on? Can you hear me? So when I hear from you guys, I'm like, seriously, oh my God, somebody is listening. I might do a little dance too, but I'm not going to share the video of that. And it's even better when you share things that you want to know about or questions or concerns that you want me to address. So keep them coming. I want this podcast to provide as much value to you as it possibly can. I also had our first subscribers only travel chat. So if you're on the newsletter, you know what I'm talking about. If not, you're missing out, and you can subscribe via the link in the show notes. But these travel chats are essentially free travel webinars for all of my veggie pals. In the first one, we covered helpful travel apps and tips. I am aiming to host these every other month to cover a variety of travel topics and maybe even having a few special guests. So you better go and sign up so you don't miss the next one. I also have a few big things coming up. Next week, I'll be attending my first vegan event as an exhibitor, the Planted Expo in Toronto. If you're going to be in Toronto or are in the Toronto area, please come by and say hi. I'd be lying if I said that I'm not a little bit anxious about this. For most people, start out with small events to get their feet wet and keep their expenses low. Did I do that? Nope, absolutely I did not. I decided to say yes to a giant one that's over 2 days and might have close to 10,000 people. That's a lot of humans. I'm really hoping that it pays off. Please cross your fingers for me. At any rate, on a more comical note, I have learned that I love working with Vistaprint, which was a surprise and weird. I had a flyer printed, but it was incorrect twice. And on the second batch, I thought, oh, well, it's not that bad, right? But they reached out to check in on it, and I shared my feedback on it, not thinking that they were going to do anything. And honestly, I wasn't going to ask. But they were like, no, we'll take care of that. So big thanks to them if you're thinking about getting anything printed. Okay, then shortly after the Planted Expo, I am heading to Greece before the country really kicks off its tourism season for a little travel research. I get a ton of requests for Greece. It surprises me the amount of requests that I actually get for that poor country. But parts of Greece, as I'm sure many of you listening know, are heavily over-touristed. So I am trying to figure out better areas of the country to send people and, of course, find as much vegan food as possible. On a funny and slightly stressful note, I barely have anything planned out for it. That is probably surprising coming from someone who plans travel for other people. But man, when it comes to my own, I wish I could clone myself and give the task to the other me. I will end up carving out chunks of time on the weekend to get it done. Otherwise, I'm going to show up to the airport in major trouble. That could make for an entertaining story, but I don't know that it's one that I really want to get myself into at this point. Okay, so let's get over to the meat, veggie meat, of course, of today's episode. I know that you all have a crazy number of choices when it comes to booking your travel. There's truly something for everybody. And when it comes down to it, some of you might think, well, why in the world would I want to book a trip with Veggies Abroad? Well, my dearest veggie listeners, let me give you a little backstory on how this all came to be and why you should want to book with me. One note, if you're on my newsletter, I did share some of this already, but there's only so much space that I can write and that honestly you will read. So that's why I have decided to go ahead and dedicate an entire episode to it and go into more detail. Okay, so first things first, let's start with a little backstory. It may come as a surprise, but I didn't intend to venture into the travel space. During the pandemic, I decided to make a career change. I think I, like many people in the world, had a bit of an awakening that so many of the ills that we face are human-induced. And for the first time, I couldn't justify it away. Hey there, fantastic listeners. Let's hit pause on this episode for a thrilling announcement, a golden ticket to Globetrot with Veggies Abroad. Veggies Abroad isn't just your go-to for vegan guides and trip planning tips. It's your passport to extraordinary small group journeys, carefully crafted by the ultimate veggie pusher and your favorite podcast host, me, Rebecca Gade Sawicki. I've spent countless hours researching the best vegan hotels, food, and experiences, and now I'm bringing those experiences directly to you. Join me and my newfound veggie pals on escapades to exciting and exotic destinations around the world. Whether it's trekking through the Thai jungle to witness elephants in their natural habitat, or staying at a carbon-neutral camp in Kenya during the Great Migration, our adventures are nothing short of spectacular. And guess what? Those aren't the only exciting trips awaiting you. So what are you waiting for? Cruise on over to veggiesabroad.com pronto. Well, how about after this episode is over to explore our dazzling lineup of 2024 trips and secure your spot on your next vegan adventure today. I decided that I could no longer just talk the talk. I needed to walk the walk. And that meant I needed to find a way to use my talents and experience for something I really believed in. So I started looking for a job with a vegan or an environmental company, but I struck out. I knew that I needed to get creative if the regular job hunt wasn't going to work off, and I needed to reinvent myself. I needed to learn new skills. And that's where the blog came into play. I initially started the blog because it was a topic that I enjoyed and I had quite a bit of experience with, but I also knew that it would force me to learn a ton of new skills. I'd never put a website together. I didn't know anything about SEO. And it would also allow me the opportunity to network with like-minded people. So I figured once that all got underway, I would be able to weasel my way into the vegan space. But that's not quite what happened. As the blog started to grow, I took on some freelance and consulting work and made the decision at the end of 2021 to leave my 15-year career behind. I figured it was now or never. At that point, I was drifting further and further into the travel space, but I always kept just a little distance and tried to find other work that wasn't travel related. You're probably wondering why. Well, the travel industry is full of a lot of bad actors, companies who are solely out for a buck and they don't care about the repercussions. I was worried I would end up peddling something I didn't believe in. And that would have really defeated the point of me leaving my career in the dust and making such a, drastic and, financially problematic decision. But then I met someone who made me realize that the travel industry is vast and I can effectively do what I want. If I want to align my mission with certain businesses while telling others to hit the road, I can. So off I went. I've had the opportunity to meet a variety of amazing humans doing incredible work, from reforesting land to creating carbon sinks to using organic waste to develop alternative fuel for cooking and much more. Some you've already heard of on this podcast, by the way. It became pretty clear pretty quickly that I could use travel as a tool for good, and I would make it my mission to find ways to support these people and the places. When it comes to the Veggies Abroad tours, I create all of the itineraries with the support of the certified B Corp travel company, Intrepid Travel. It was important for me to align with a company like Intrepid to enhance my focus on responsible and sustainable travel. It's been their focus since the late 80s. I think it's clear by now that if I was going to do this, I wanted to do it in the best possible way. And there are just some things that I wouldn't be able to do well on my own. Their support ensures that locals are involved in every single trip. I want my travelers to meet people who live and breathe these destinations, to talk about their daily life, political frustrations, things that they love, and of course, ask us questions. I think this is one of the most important aspects of travel. It allows us a front row seat to get to know someone's culture from them and not the TV and not a magazine, not anybody else. I often think if more people had this opportunity, maybe the world would be a kinder and more inclusive place because at the end of the day, we're not all that different. In addition to that, they also help offset the carbon footprint to the best of our ability of the land based portion of every itinerary. I'm still figuring out the best ways to implement this for other aspects of my business. So it's a relief to have a partner who's already figured it out for some of it. While you're checking through the jungle in Thailand or enjoying a plant based feast, you can feel good knowing that the trip is aligning not only with your ethics to promote a cruelty free lifestyle, but also with your desire to be more eco friendly. Now, I know carbon offsetting is a bit of a buzzword in travel, and it's by no means an end all be all, but I think it's an important step in the right direction if it's being invested into projects that make sense. You might be wondering if all travel companies are doing this or something similar. That's a big fat nope. To be honest, some in the industry are still reluctant to even acknowledge that they are part of the problem, and this pains me to no end. There are some really giant companies out there that are throwing around a lot of greenwashing or are doing nothing at all. And in my opinion, it's completely unacceptable. But that's not all that differentiates our veggie tours. In each itinerary, I prioritize supporting vegan friendly, and eco friendly hotels as much as possible. This is where things sometimes get a little tricky, as supporting these places is generally more expensive than staying at a Best Western. I understand that can be difficult for people to justify, but just think about the things you'll go out of your way for to buy in your day to day. You probably prioritize certain products because of the company or because it's better for you. We need to start thinking about traveling in the same way. Where you spend your dollars matters. And I know all of you listening want to see more businesses that care. And the only way to keep them humming is to support them. This also doesn't mean that I prioritize some bougie place just because it banned plastic straws. When possible, I review their sustainability plans and I even meet with some of them to understand what they're really all about and if we align. There are times when the options are slim or something just blows the budget up in smoke. But I'd say for the most part, we're always able to find somewhere that's doing something, even if it's small, that matters. There are also times when having a group of vegans in a hotel makes them have to think twice about what's on their menu. And I love it when our presence can invoke a little activism. I hope after we depart, they consider keeping those veggie options around. And maybe that wouldn't have happened if we had not visited. In addition to being cognizant of where we're staying, you'll also find that each trip includes a local guide or guides, transportation throughout the country, many vegan meals, tons of activities, and often I try to find ways to integrate or support the local community. During our trip to Thailand, I tried to the best of my ability to research the backstories of many of the restaurants that we visited, and then shared my notes with our guide, who carried the torch even further. We were able to have lunch at a small restaurant that is run by a family that hasn't been vegan for all that long. The owner's sister was diagnosed with cancer, and the doctor told her to adopt a plant-based diet as that with treatment would be her best bet for survival. She's doing well now, but it was a light bulb moment for the rest of the family. Shortly thereafter, they opened the restaurant, which is on the outskirts of town, so it doesn't get a ton of outside visitors. Our group was really moved to be able to support them. We also had dinner at a spot that's become a hub for the community. A former Missourian has been working to improve the lives of those in need by teaching English and other various life skills in Chiang Mai. Her tenacity to support others and her need to find funding for it led to the opening of this vegan and plastic-free cafe. But it's far more than a cafe. All the profits from the food sales and the on-site shop go back into the community and support a local nonprofit that provides access to basic human rights. As things continue to grow, it's also my goal to add a charitable element to every trip and donate a portion of the profits back to the community that we visited as a thank you for letting us visit and also to help them keep doing their good work. There's still one more thing. Some of you may know that I'm also a travel advisor, which means if you want help with airfare or travel insurance, I can help with your trip. Or maybe you want to have a quick visit to another city before or after your tour. I can help with that too. I'm currently helping a couple arrange a fully guided stop in Seoul before they head to Bali for our fall adventure. I can help make this experience as seamless as possible for all of you. So by now, you might be wondering, where the heck are these tours going this year? Well, I have 3. An African safari to Kenya and Tanzania in July, an adventure to Bali in the fall, and we'll wrap up the year in Costa Rica in December. And soon I will have a few for 2025 to share. As I hope you can tell, I don't want these itineraries just to be a wham-bam visit. I work to find ways to make them as immersive as possible so you leave having a better understanding and appreciation while supporting other businesses working to make travel more responsible, sustainable, and vegan-friendly. I really hope that you'll consider joining me on one of these adventures so you can see firsthand why traveling with Veggies Abroad is different and why it matters to do it responsibly. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. If you did, please consider subscribing and leaving a review. If you'd also like to learn more about upcoming Veggies Abroad tours or get additional travel help, visit veggiesabroad.com and also join our newsletter. It's the best way to stay up to date with loads of new content, like where to find gorgeous vegan hotels, what to eat in cities around the world, trip planning tips, and so much more. Well, that's all I've got for now. Until next time.